There's a posting on the Richard Dawkins website right now about, or quite a discussion going on actually in the forums, about Karen Armstrong. She and Dawkins had kind of parallel pieces published in, I can't remember the publication, it was either the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or some fairly prestigious publication. And Karen Armstrong's piece, which it wasn't a defence of religion, it was more of a critique of religion, I think, in terms of a kind of religion being hog-tied by its fact claims, and when in fact, according to Armstrong at least, the kind of the origins of religion don't lie in belief based on fact claims. They lie in other kinds of understandings, more closely associated with mythology than any kind of empiricism. But she's coming for a huge amount of flack, partly because, well, I guess the validity of her statement is called into question, and also the extent to which she actually represents any kind of religious thinking at all is also a question. But and to a certain extent, what's described as a kind of fuzziness in her thinking is also critiqued. And I don't know, maybe these things have got some validity. But it seems to me at the same time that there's more in common between Karen Armstrong and Richard Dawkins' writings than is immediately obvious. Or at least there's a chain of connection between Karen Armstrong's writing and Richard Dawkins' writing, which I don't think is there between, for example, Francis Collins and Richard Dawkins. I think there is absolutely a fracture between Karen Armstrong and Francis Collins, where I don't think that fracture exists between Karen Armstrong and Richard Dawkins. And what I mean by that, go on, Pops, let's go this way. What I mean by that is that when she's talking about religion, she's talking about it in a way which is, firstly, the content is almost irrelevant. The details, as I say, the fact claims, are not the main point. It's to do with other things. It's to do with the concept of the unknowable, the concept of the sublime. It's to do with a kind of emotional engagement. It's to do with all those kind of things. And probably other things I don't know about because I'm no theologian. And in that sense, there's a very small step, I think, from the kind of writing that she's doing, and other people like James Carse are doing, and the writings of people like Ursula Goodenough, the kind of religious naturalist way of thinking and writing. Ursula Goodenough is writing about evolution, she's writing about biology, she's writing about the natural world, but she's writing about it in a very, very similar register to the way that Karen Armstrong or James Carse write about religion, actually. And since we've already said that the content it's not exactly irrelevant, but it's the content just provides the framework on which these other kind of emotional or less clearly defined ideas are suspended, then there's quite a close relationship, I think. And there's a very small step from Ursula Goodenoug's writing to people like Carl Sagan, absolutely fantastic writer, full of respect and awe and admiration for the natural world. But the language in which that admiration and respect is expressed is, whilst not overtly religious, it's damn close at times. And again, there's a very small step between Carl Sagan and Richard Dawkins in that regard. In fact, I think in the opening chapter of The God Delusion, Richard Dawkins' God Delusion, he does cite Carl Sagan. I think he also cites Ursula Goodenough, actually, as writers who are respectful and kind of an emotionally engaged and in a completely human way. But the content of that engagement is not mythology. Or if it is mythology, it's the natural mythology of lived experience in the natural world. So I don't think there is any particular discontinuity between Karen Armstrong's writings and Richard Dawkins' writings in that sense, because of course he writes in a similar way. Actually, he doesn't write about God and angels and hell and heaven and hell, or at least not in any positive sense. He writes about biology, but the way he writes it and the kind of expectations you would come out of that writing with, in terms of how you regard the natural world, is very close, I think, to what Karen Armstrong was talking about. Whereas, as I said before, I think there is a huge discontinuity between someone like Karen Armstrong or the religious naturalists and someone like Francis Collins, who is definitely a confused thinker. I mean, I'm sure he's an intelligent man, but his claims about religion, the stuff he writes about in the language of God, is facile. And I think there are absolutely truth claims being made there, claims made about the actual content, which are in complete contradiction to what he claims to believe elsewhere in his writings, and what every scientist worth his salt would believe, really. So I suppose I'm just saying that the antagonism named at Karen Armstrong is, in my book at least, a little bit unfair. Yeah, I finished. At least I think I finished, not quite